What's up, everybody, and welcome to Growing Up Gaming, your weekly podcast where we meet a new person of the internet to discuss their childhood with gaming and how it inspired their lives today. My name is Mitch Power. Again, thank you guys so much for returning each and every week to the show. Hopefully you've subscribed on iTunes or Google Play or YouTube, which we have the shows there as well. So hopefully you're checking us out on one of those three avenues and subscribe there. If you are, thank you so much for checking us out each and every week. This week on the show, we have our guest. His name is Ed Kroeger. I met this man on Twitter. He was one of the fine gentlemen that was nice enough to want to be on the show. I asked him and he said, of course. So you can go ahead and listen to all of his stories about how video games influenced his love of music and how that's kind of inspired him to continue to make his own video games moving forward. If you guys want to be on the show just like he was, go ahead and send me a tweet at MitchPower1116 on Twitter or at the podcast Twitter page, which is at GUG Podcast on Twitter. Without further ado, let's get things started with Ed Kroeger. Do you remember what initially got you started playing games? Was it a family member? Was it a friend? Was it some awesome store, kiosk, or a magazine? Like, what initially got you interested in gaming?
Basically, I have two stories with this. The first is with the aid of, home video. We have, a home video of my first time actually experiencing, the NES. I was with my sister, who's older than me. She's 4 years older than me. And it was just this Sesame Street game. And it was just learn your letters. I actually ordered a copy of it off of eBay because I'm trying to recollect all the old games I had.
Nice.
So when I was little, I loved Sesame Street and in particular Ernie. But at the time I could only say Ernie. And so there's a video of me holding a controller, thinking that I'm playing, and Ernie comes on the screen, and I just start bouncing up and down, going wild, and be like, Ernie! Ernie! So it's all crazy. But my first, actual memory that I can think of and actually is a first-hand memory, I think, is of playing Excite Bike and, creating tracks there. And I don't remember what age I was at. I was probably, 3 or 4. Because I know it was when I was still living in Illinois, so. And that was, through my cousin, Chris. And he was really big into video games, and, throughout the years, he kind of, really introduced me to a lot of different things about video games, and he was really knowledgeable about it, so.
That's awesome. I mean, yeah, and I also, what's funny is I keep forgetting, Excitebike actually had a, create a level, which.
Yeah.
I mean. Yeah, you created a level. I mean, like I said, it wasn't complex or anything, but also not much was.
I think the thing that I was obsessed with doing was just doing the biggest jump and then just doing that one right after another. You know, when you're a kid, you just do the stupidest things.
Yeah.
But I mean, it was really basic, but for to be introduced to that concept of creating your own quote unquote content for a game. It's pretty cool that it was something that was at least there so early on in gaming history.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, obviously there wasn't many games out there that was create your own blah, blah, blah. You know what I mean? There wasn't a track. Obviously later on down the road, now there was games dedicated to making your own game.
Yeah, it becomes a staple.
Yeah, exactly.
Only almost its own genre. So
right, yeah. I mean, you get to more complex shit, but I mean, even basic things like just create your own level in Excitebike, and of course, yeah, you're a kid. You don't, you know what I mean? That. What do you do? You just do big jumps and go fast.
Yeah,
that was all you thought about as a kid. You know? What I mean?
Yeah, so, exactly.
I never had that. I mean, of course, like I said, I mean, back then. It was just creating big jumps and stuff, but now you can create some things in games that are just so crazy, and that's one thing I've never had a knack for. Also, I'm not very creative as far as being artistic and thinking about shit. I don't know. I've tried games where it's create your own whatever, LittleBigPlanet and stuff.
Oh yeah, the thing with LittleBigPlanet is it's so esoteric. I don't even know how to begin. People I remade Final Fantasy in this. I'm Okay, I'm pretty sure it's a platformer, but
yeah, like I don't know how that works. Yeah, I've always just loved, as long as you give me the ability to download other people's cool shit, then I'm cool.
Yeah, that's
yeah, I mean, I just never had that ability or never had that knack for creating things. But, you know, I'm trying to think of far back of like, I'm trying to remember if I mean, obviously I played Excitebike and stuff, but I'm trying to think if I ever played any other games back then that had any created stuff. Because, I mean, if a game relies on created content, I'm screwed. I'm just like,
yeah.
Can't do it. And LittleBigPlanet, for the most part, obviously fun game. I actually had more fun just playing the game as it was, and
because it was pretty well designed.
Right? Yeah, it was a good game and stuff. I mean, it was super insanely floaty, but that was like the charm of the game and stuff. And it was pretty friendly for any age group and stuff. So I remember my friend, my wife, my kids playing that type of game. But yeah, if you rely on me to create shit, no way, dude.
Yeah,
I just can't do it.
So, continuing on as far as like the bulk of my earlier memories is like after I moved to Wisconsin, I got like a Super Nintendo for Christmas, and so did my sister. So we both had Super Nintendos, and like Mario World.
Wait, you had like two in the house?
Yes. We also had two Nintendo 64s. She had a Genesis.
Okay. Yeah, I like how you said that with disdain. You're like, Genesis. No,
yeah. Well, I mean, like, it was cool, but I mean, like, the only real games I played on it, or we had with it, was like Sonic, and then there was like The Legend of Chuck Rock or something. It's just like some really weird platform. I was like, I could never get very far in.
Right.
But the Sonic games I'm in love with. So currently, like, I'm trying to recollect all the old games that I used to have that either, like, I sold off. And luckily, I saved a lot of my old stuff. Like, I still have my original, like, NES. I still have my original Super Nintendo and a couple other systems. But, yeah, so, like...
it sounded like your sister... I mean, at least you had a sibling in the house who was into gaming as much as you were, to where you actually warranted like a second console in the house.
Yeah, well, I mean, like she played like the Marios and a lot of the simple stuff. Like even my mom would play Tetris and Mario, but she didn't get too deep into any of the other stuff. But it was just something that I guess our whole family, at least a little bit, wrapped their head around the idea of. Like, I was the one who was, like, super deep into it, like, with having a lot of games and stuff like that. But, yeah, everybody, I mean, I could be like, hey, Kristen, you want to play Mario Kart on Nintendo 64? And she'd be like, yeah, as long as it was kind of, like, just, like, one of those, like, really quick drop-in games. Like,
sure.
She was all about it.
Did she have completely different tastes as far as, like, because, I mean, I'm actually shocked. Not shocked. I mean, it's not like it's like, oh my God, it's impossible. But I mean, the thought of a parent being like, no, we can have two of this console in the house at the same time. Because most parents would be like, we're buying one and you're sharing. You know what I mean?
I know. It was crazy because, I mean, like, we had it set up in our rooms. Like, she had her own TV in her room. I had my own TV. And, like, thinking back about it, like, especially, like, listening to and talking with friends about the situation, like, when they were growing up, I'm like, wow, like, I was really, really lucky. I didn't even realize it.
Right. I mean, the TV in your room thing isn't as big of a thing, right? I mean, like, I didn't grow up, my family was pretty poor and stuff. And I mean, it's not like I had a lot of money when I was growing up, but I mean, out of just like, I think sanity for my father's sake, he got me my own TV for my room because he was just like, I can't deal with you being in the living room trying to play this game console the whole time. So he just bought me some like small basic like TV he found at like a garage sale or something. Yeah. And it was just like, here you go. The one thing that blows my mind is the two consoles. I'm like, wow, like, cause like I said, I mean, I understand if say there was like a Super Nintendo and a Genesis, a 64 and a PlayStation, but it's like, no, go in your own rooms and like just play. And I mean, again, that could have been for the sanity of your parents too, because they were probably just like, I don't want to hear it, and we're just gonna buy two. Yeah,
I mean, I think a lot of like we even had our own Game Boys. Like I had a game like the Brick, and she had her own Brick, and I think it was just something about the way that like video games clicked for them. They were like, oh, it's a toy, and like they each have their own toys or something like that. You know,
That's
it's interesting, but
well, at the time, video gaming wasn't as a mainstream type of deal. It was still,
and it was the perception
toy.
of it was much more of a toy,
right?
And so was the marketing. So
very true. And especially more. I'm not going to say marketed only at kids, but like a lot of people thought of gaming then as a kid activity. So I mean, I understand the separate Game Boys, like that one. I'm more like, I mean, each person should have their own handheld. Like, and I mean, even when my kids got their DS, like they got their 3DS or whatever, I bought them each one because I was like, no, like you guys should have your own handheld. But the home console. I mean, again, good for you, man. You didn't have to share.
Yeah, man, I really lucked out. And the great thing is, like, man, handhelds back in the day were such a godsend for me because most of our family lived in Illinois because I was like originally born there. So we would take the like 7-hour trip to go and drive there. Basically, okay, like the town that I grew up in was like super small. It was like Sugar Camp, Wisconsin, this super small thing. It's like 20 minutes to the nearest Walmart, an hour and a half to the nearest mall.
Right.
So like even to this day, going to the mall is like a thing for me because I'm like, oh, it's an event because it was a big old thing. So like handheld, having that game in the car.
Oh my God.
I have so many memories of just marathoning games. In the car on the way. Even on the bus, I would like beat Kirby's Dream Land because it's a super short game, like super easy. Because the bus ride, it wasn't a bus stop. It was like, we're going to everybody's house, and everybody lives down a long, winding road. We feel like we're going to go careening off the side of the road and fall into a ditch any moment. So there was just a lot of time for me to actually play, and a lot of like. I just associate like car trips with like video games a lot.
Yeah,
and having that downtime. So
did you have like your giant Frankenstein brick, like where you had to have the power adapter?
And the magnifying glass.
Oh my
God, light.
The magnifying light.
I had a carrying case for the brick. That was fucking awesome. It was like the same color scheme. Like on the side, they had these two big things that like. Just two plastic circles that didn't do shit. They were just there to look cool. But they were the color of like the buttons.
Right.
But yeah, you could like put a bunch of games in there, and yeah, it was really cool.
But of course you held that and like you carried it around, and then everybody knew what you had. You were like, it was kind of like a look what I got in this thing.
Yeah.
Like nobody could look at that and go, oh, I wonder what that is.
Yeah, the cool thing was like I made a couple of friends at school that were like really into video games, and like I had like my group of friends. I also had like a lot of kids that like picked on me growing up, like, and so I think that's a big part of also why I was like so into video games. It was kind of a retreat from like that bullshit that people have to deal with in their life,
right?
And it was a healthy kind of outlet, and so I think that's a big reason why like video games were so important to me growing up. But I was primarily like a Nintendo kid growing up, as you could tell,
right?
But yeah, it was a lot of fun. I really gained a super affinity for rare titles like Donkey Kong. I remember we had Nintendo Power coming to the house, so like you'd get the promotional like the guy's going into Nintendo headquarters and he's like, "Hey guys," he's got like his like freaking tie-dye shirt or whatever, like just neon, you know,
as 90s as can be.
Yeah, it's like, "Hey guys, we're here. Look, this is a mode 7 or mode 6 or whatever it is, and that makes it can do snow on the level. Whoa," you know, and you know all this stuff, and it was where I learned the term graphics. I was like, "Oh my god, Mom, Dad, this Donkey Kong game, it has the best graphics. They're like 3D, you know, and all this stuff." And like I basically got each of the Donkey Kong games during like Christmas, like so as they were releasing, I would always get like a Donkey Kong game for Christmas, and it was awesome. And I just fell in love with Rare. It was the first time I was really like aware of the idea of like, oh, this is a publisher and they games. And the funny thing is that like I was mentioning that Sesame Street game, Rare worked on it.
That's awesome.
So I was like, Oh, serendipity, like that. That's actually really kind of an interesting little thing.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm trying to think. I mean, because the only thing I could think about as far as a developer goes back then was EA. Only because EA, like, especially with the sports titles and like.
Yeah, you're a big sports game guy, huh?
Well, I mean, not really, but I mean, I just remember number one, like the cartridges looking different. So like you're. You know, but I just remember like looking at certain games and going, "That's an EA game," because I had a Genesis, and like the cartridges actually look different than like a regular Genesis cartridge.
Yeah,
like,
yeah, I just figured that out.
Right,
recently.
So like they had, but all those types of titles were just in a different form factor. So like visually, I would see that and go, "That's an EA game."
Yeah,
not even thinking like I'm not a big like sports guy, and even today, like I'll play sports games, but I don't like fawn over like, oh my god, I can't wait for Madden. Like it's very similar to last year's. Not really a big difference. Whatever.
Right.
But as far as it goes, that's the only company I remember like vividly. Like this is a company I will remember mostly because the form factor of the cartridges, which at that time obviously that was your big differentiating factor with Genesis at least. But also too, I mean, again, like the industry as far as the industry, quote unquote, it was still not mainstream. It was still thought of as like a kid's toy. It wasn't, you know, people were just making video games and it was like a joke. And like, if you told somebody back then you made video games, they may not have had like, oh, okay, cool, you make video games, whatever.
Yeah.
But now it's like, holy shit, you make video games. What company do you work for? What games are you making? What's the, you know, like it's a lot more in depth of like the industry now to where now
it's just so much more accessible.
Right.
And people can really wrap their head around it nowadays, where before, and I think that's like one of the most interesting things to me, because like I really do I like modern games, but I really like retro games a lot, and I'm actually working right now. I'm making like a little RPG. Like I started off an RPG Maker, I moved over to Unity, and it's kind of like this. It takes inspiration from like games like Earthbound and like Paper Mario and stuff like that, but
nice.
So, like, going here and, like, trying to emulate and copy certain things that they did, like, it's kind of so much more accessible in the tools that we have now. Because, you know, but I'm sitting there and I'm thinking about, like, all the crazy stuff they did. Even when it comes to making music, like, you'll catch a documentary or something about where somebody's interviewed about, like, oh, I was, like, a music writer for, like, Final Fantasy, and, like, I had this weird notebook with these like line graphs of like sine waves and like all this weird shit. And it's just like when you start to understand and unpack like the limitations that they were working with and the amazing experiences and things that they were able to accomplish with that like limited computing power and where they really had to trick it into doing what they wanted to do. It still blows my mind. Like that stuff still is as impressive to me as like your blockbuster like Call of Duty game where it's got like all this particle effects and bullshit going on.
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest thing back then was it required. I'm not going to say more talent because obviously there's shit now that you're seeing and you're just like, wow, like it takes an amazing mind to think of that. But I mean, I think. The thing is now is they don't have to rely on imagination at all. Like you are seeing as real graphics, and I could say as real graphics as are going to get, right? But I mean, obviously they get more detailed and more refined and better and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
But also now you have voice acting. Also now you have full orchestrated music soundtracks. You have
There's a lot more components to it nowadays.
Right.
And it's kind of more open to, like you said, voice actors, writers, composers. Where back in the day, I think a lot of games actually had actual ass composers like working on the stuff. But I
mean, you had to be a lot more creative, and you had to
you had to be creative and very knowledgeable. You had to kind of. It's from my limited experience. You had to be able to be creative and good with computers,
right? Because I mean,
you have to be able to translate. Because you couldn't just be like, okay, I'm going to record me playing a flute and then just doing that. Like you had to be like, I got to find something that sounds like a flute. I got to make sure that this is the only thing that's playing right here because I only have 4 channels to work with.
Right.
And I had to figure out what numbers or whatever the sign would. Yeah, so it's just interesting.
Well, I think now, like, definitely. Yeah, I mean, you have a lot more limitations back then. So, I mean, you know, in a way, it makes you appreciate that they had to be more creative in general just to figure it out, right? It's not even a matter of, like, yeah, you could take Earthbound as far as a game goes, and you could recreate it today, beat for beat. You could have better music, better graphics, better audio, better, you know, voice acting, you know, cinematics. You could have all this shit. Mm-hmm. But, I mean, back then they had to do all of that with the limitations they had, but also... Exactly. It made you, like, they were making people create their own, like, in a way, like, when you're playing Earthbound and you're reading text, you had to think of how that character sounded. Now they can just give you the voice. You had to, you know, they couldn't do all the animations they wanted to. Now you have actors that are doing the entire animations for the cinematic. So it's as real as it could possibly be. Back then, it was literally like, think about the shit that they had to do to make a good game. And then also make sure that they conveyed it in a way that you took it and understood it. And, you know, because now they can make a character do exactly what a human does, literally beat for beat. There's no imagination that's left. Like, you could just literally watch it like a movie and understand it. Back then, you literally had to...
It's more of a book type experience.
Yeah, you had to convey that message in a way that they would understand and appreciate and like, and not to mention you had to make a game that was stuck within all these limitations. Like, yeah, there was just a lot more like restrictions back then, but still for people to create a game that people play today and think is like Mario, the very first Mario Brothers.
Oh my God.
There's no quote unquote story. It's like go get the princess. But I mean, in your head, you just had all this imagination of like what you had to do and what, you know, what was going on in the backstories, and people would make their own shit up of like, oh no, this is how it went. Now, like, you could literally hear Mario and you know, Koopa tell you, like, this
is how I'm feeling today.
Yeah, you could have them do animations and they could say exactly how they're feeling, exactly what the story is.
Let's talk about it. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. But no, I just like back then, especially like, obviously I've discussed it before in the show, but like obviously Nintendo, Super Nintendo just hold up better than PlayStation and 64 only because the jarring 3D, like your first entry into 3D, it's just 3D. So like, it just throws you off. You look at it and you're like, holy shit. And of course, nostalgia glasses like make you think it looked way better. And then you go back and actually looked at what it looked. Because again, back then there was still that imagination thing. Like, it gave you close, but you still thought, like, if you think back on certain games right now, like your favorite games, in your head, you're thinking of it looking way better than it did. Like, you just imagine games looking fantastic, and then you actually go look at the game on YouTube, and you're just like, well, like, example, Metal Gear 1. Metal Gear, let me rephrase that. Metal Gear Solid. You go back and look at that game, the original PlayStation 1, and again, I thought the game looked fantastic.
Yeah. With the faces, like, there's no animation on the faces. They're talking and their heads just moving around, stuff like that. Yeah,
and like static faces and like polygon faces. And again, but that game did such an amazing job of the voice acting, but also telling a story, even though it looked like that. Like, I think the quote unquote cinematography in it was also still very good, because I started playing it for my first time recently because I got my hands on like a copy. But, like, all the simple graphics aside, you could definitely tell that there was that eye for, like, the cutscenes and stuff like that has, like, you could be like, this is definitely, like, the beginning of what we see now today in these scripted cutscenes where they're actually, like, moving the camera, like, oh, this is a camera. Like, I think they have like weird pan-in moments and just like just the way that they frame it and stuff like that. And it's so like, yeah, I mean, like, and I think that's what contributed a lot to people being like, man, I remember that looking awesome, because there was a lot of attention to detail, even in the animations, as simple as they were. There was enough there to really convey a lot of things that was that could have been a lot worse. I'll just say it could have been a lot worse. I think, I mean, obviously there was good stories in games before, and there was good, you know, storylines and characters and all that stuff, right? I think that was like the first game that married the fact that like, holy shit, this could be a movie, but it's a video game. Like, just the way that the actors were, the characters were, the voice acting. Again, animations aside, graphics aside, just like looking at it. And I think the other problem too is like certain games, when they get remastered, you'd think that's how it looked on PS1, and it really didn't. But
yeah.
Because that was the problem. Like, Twin Snakes kind of ruined it, because Twin Snakes looked really good, and I was like, yeah.
And then you go back to the PS1 version, like, God damn it!
Well, that happened to me with Resident Evil 1. I had downloaded the Xbox One had a sale on all the Resident Evil games. I bought it. I started playing Resident Evil 1 again, and I was like, man, this game doesn't look bad. And then I actually went back to look at YouTube videos of PlayStation 1 Resident Evil, and I was just like, woof, this looks really rough.
I have a great story about Resident Evil. So I didn't own like a PlayStation growing up or PlayStation 2. But one time when I was in Illinois visiting with my cousins, my older cousin, he had a PlayStation 1. He was playing Resident Evil, and he just started it up. And it's the scene where you see panning and on the zombie head, and it turns around. It's like, I ran out of that room crying and screaming. It was like, I never want to play PlayStation. It's too scary. You know, like it took me a long time to even like get into like a Resident Evil game, because like that was such a prominent thing in my mind. Like I kept remembering like that game was scary as hell, you know?
I like how you associated the entire brand with that game. Like,
yeah.
Like, not just the game, but you were like, no, that entire console is scary. Like, it can produce scary shit. Like,
yeah.
I also, too, I mean, the other thing, too, with that, and I can imagine it being even scarier, was the fact that that was one of those quote-unquote cutscenes.
Yeah.
That was one of those, like, pre-rendered, like, they you know, it was, like, a much better quality, and and then, of course, it jars back to the actual game where it's not as scary looking at all, but, yeah, dude, that was a crazy moment. I mean, I can tell you, though, like, that was the same thing. I got that game, and initially I was thinking, okay, this game I heard is scary, but I heard it's good, so let's play it. And then, I got the shit scared out of me with the damn dogs jumping through the window. And, it was, but again, that was in another way, too. That was like, at that time, for me at least, that was a new type of genre that, in my opinion, I don't think could have existed as well on Super Nintendo and stuff. Like, I'm sure jump scares can happen anytime, right? Like, that's jump scares can just be a fucking loud noise and you're all of a sudden out of nowhere. But that was the type of game where, like, I don't remember a scary genre being around. I mean, you can't say Friday the 13th on NES is scary. Like, it's, it is. There are those, like, oh shit moments, but, like, Resident Evil had fucking frightening, like, oh my god, I'm gonna die, like, heart racing, freaking out moment.
Exactly. And that was, I think that it was largely in part due to the survival mechanics too, because you were, that fear of death, like, it's not like Mario, like, oh, at any time I can just jump on his head. I just need to position myself right and all that stuff. Like, you could be in a situation where, like, I want to shoot this thing that's coming at me, but I can't shoot it because I don't have that much ammo.
Yeah, exactly. Like,
and that adds to the stress, the panic. It marries the scary stuff too. There was like stuff like Clock Tower on the SNES, but who really knew about Clock Tower back then? That's one of those kind of like more niche sort of titles, and that was even more, I think, of a point and click adventure type thing, which I never really got into personally. Right. But
I remember back in the day there was some, and again, I vaguely remember playing it. I don't know if you know, there was, I'm sure, I hope you know, there was a show on Nickelodeon called Are You Afraid of the Dark? Which that was, so that was one of those like scary, it was like one of those, again, scary if you're fucking 8, but it's scary at the time. But they had like a PC CD-ROM game that I played at my uncle's house. And again, but that was like more of a point and click type of deal. But again, that was kind of just like weird shit. But again, that was back when full motion video and like that type of stuff was becoming a thing on CD-ROM. So that's why it was more scary. But just, you're right though. Like on the NES, when you played Friday the 13th and Jason showed up, you're like, oh no. But literally when you saw, a group of zombies in front of you and you got 3 bullets and you're like, fuck, I got to get through this hallway. You literally have that moment of like,
yeah,
get around these people. But yeah, the survival mechanics. By the way, that's one of those things that sometimes screws up games too, is just gameplay design. I'm sorry, but Resident Evil 1, when I played it back again, I was like, dude, I'm so glad we don't have fucking chests. I'm so glad we don't have ink ribbons anymore. I'm so it's just not a matter of like, it made the game more hard, but like there was just frustrating things. And again, at the time, they had to do, again, it was limitations. You know what I mean? I get you couldn't do all that, but yeah.
When they were figuring out like what worked with genres and stuff, like they're like you said, like there was a lot of interesting things as far as in the 3D era, not only of the actual graphics and looks of it, but the gameplay mechanics were being smoothed out. Like we can go and talk about Mario, which that just like hit it out of the park. Like that was such a standard of a platformer. You know, like that set the standard. But like Mario in 3D, translate that, it's a pretty cool game, but there was definitely room for improvement, you know?
Right.
And they were figuring stuff out. Great example, GoldenEye, you go back and try and play that.
Nope.
We've done that. We've been able to do like first-person shooters way better. But on that note, I found a way to play GoldenEye and make it feel modern.
Because, like, I tried playing, like, the old style, like, and I couldn't.
Okay, so this is what you do. You get 2 Nintendo 64 controllers. You go into the options. There's an option where you can control them using 2. You hold 1 in each hand. You even have to, like, cross it, because the second player is, like, the move. And the first player is the look, so you actually have to swap the physical controllers. But you can actually move and look around like a modern first-person shooter game, and it works like a modern game with just the heaviest fucking aim assist you've ever felt in your life. But it makes it playable, and I'm like so happy I remember that there were weird options for 2-player and fucked around with it, because it works, and I can actually kind of play those games back again and enjoy them.
Well, now you can with 2 controllers. I mean, again, like
back in the day, like that was foreign. Like nobody really. They were like, "Oh, this is fine," you know. Like,
yeah. Well, again, I mean, that was they like you said though. At the PlayStation era, they were figuring out shit. They were figuring out 3D. They were figuring out like analog sticks. They were figuring out movement and cameras and all of the above and graphics and. Yeah, now obviously it's all refined, so we're good now. But yeah, dude, some of those games and everything were just, dude. I tried though, like but the thing is like some games get modernized, and again, it's just cameras have gotten better. Like example, I love Kingdom Hearts. I love Kingdom Hearts to death.
Yeah.
Kingdom Hearts 1's camera is trash. It is not good. It's not. And again, at the time, I was playing it and you just kind of dealt with it. You were just like, this is what it is. But dude, when you go back and play it, you're like, dude, this camera is so bad. And like, even when they remade it and remastered it, obviously they didn't really mess with the code or much, you know, they just kind of redid the graphics. But, my daughter was playing it and I was just like, she's like, this camera sucked. I'm like, yeah.
And it's just one of those ignorance is bliss moments.
Right.
But a real quick aside about Kingdom Hearts, there's a band you got to check out if you're a fan of Kingdom Hearts called Xehanort.
Oh, jeez.
And like, they have one album that I think is like written around Kingdom Hearts because it's all like re-dissolve, re-this, re-that, and I think that there's like an naming convention. But if you like, it's like Kingdom Hearts, but they just make it like the heaviest freaking stuff you've ever heard in your life. It's great. It's really cool.
That's hilarious. I'll take a look at that. Yeah, I mean, well, Kingdom Hearts is already a disaster. As soon as you said that, I was just like, of course there's a band named that. Cause,
right.
Like, there's already 900 names. And I mean, but hopefully 3. And the thing that sucks is like, apparently, here's what's really sad. Apparently, people who played 3 said it still kind of plays like 1 and 2 did, but the camera's still kind of shitty. And I'm like, oh no. Hopefully they got it better, but that's fine. Yeah. So, anyways, back to back in the day. So you basically you had Super Nintendos. You said your sister got a Genesis, but then you kind of moved to 64. Did your sister kind of like keep up with you as far as gaming goes? Did she
That's where she kind of dropped off. Like, she didn't kind of continue to follow it. I mean, I think she was into the Wii. She skipped the GameCube. I think the GameCube that was probably when it was starting to get a little bit more expensive. So they were like, well, we can get you. And she was probably, I think, yeah, at that time she was like going off to college and stuff. So there was just like her priorities were in different areas. So yeah, like even now she wants a Switch and like her boyfriend's into gaming. So like there are some games that she does like. Like I said, she was never really hardcore into it. She doesn't keep up with industry news or anything like that. But like there are there's a couple games that she just kind of likes. Like it's like the Mario Karts and stuff like that, and stuff. But yeah, the Nintendo 64 era was awesome. She had Mario, and that game was so cool. I would always go in a room and be playing that.
Mario 64.
Mario 64, yeah.
Yeah, that game. I want to say out of everything, like it's still that might be my favorite Mario game, only because. And I mean, obviously now I understand there's better 3D Mario games.
Yeah.
I get it, but that game at that time when it came out just shook the shit out of people. It was incredible, yeah. Not only from a game, like from a graphics design, right? But then the camera, the like just the 3D movement, the level design, how the levels were laid out, how it was like, you know, back in Mario, it was like, now you're in this world, beat all these stages. Now you're in this world, beat all these stages. But like the openness of like, no, go here, go here, go here, go wherever you want.
The fact that also too that it felt like a Mario game still.
Yes.
And they were able to keep that with was really cool. Yeah.
It was just like, again, at the time, it brings back the best memories of a Mario game. Like, and I understand Mario 3 is fantastic. Like, there's other Mario games that are good, but like just playing Mario 64 at the time, and people were just like, this is fucking crazy. Like, this is insane. And of course, now again, you go back and look at the graphics and you're like, what the fuck? Like, it looks...
But it's still fun. It's still a fun game. But it plays
like,
well.
Yeah, that's the thing, that like gameplay of that game is so good, even with being one of those first 3D era games where like the gameplay suffered in some of those games. Like, they figured shit out in that game. And even the camera, like just the free roam camera, like... It wasn't fixed on a certain angle. I mean, you can move around wherever you wanted to.
Yeah.
Just that gameplay is phenomenal.
Yeah.
And that is probably my favorite Mario game. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. I got really deep into Star Fox. Oh my God. Star Fox 64 was awesome. The Rumble Pack. I remember there was another one of those Nintendo promos, and they were talking all about it's like, it's so funny because it would never be today. Like, in the promo, it's these guys, I think they were standing outside of like a flight school or Nintendo headquarters, and they go and jump this guy and put chloroform over his head to knock him out. And they're going back to take him to interrogate him, to tell them about all the secrets that are in this new Star Fox game. And they have like a little doll of Mario hooked up to like a battery, and they're like, we're gonna check Mario if you don't tell us. And they're like, yeah, it's so funny. But then he lets it slip that like about the Rumble Pack.
Oh my God. And
then like, really, Bob, the Rumble Pack, you know, like, and yeah, it was awesome. It was so funny. I just remember watching that promo over and over because they gave you a VHS tape, so you would just like watch it over and get super hyped and be like, this game's gonna be so cool. And it was such a good game.
I just love the fact that like, and by the way, if you're to think about this shit, go look at like some of Nintendo's print ads, because some of them are like, you think about like Nintendo as a company now, they're like, hey, we're family friendly.
The Bowser's head on a platter. Do you know that one that I'm talking about?
Dude, there's so many though. There's like one where it's like, I'm not kidding you, there's like a girl tied to a bed because a guy wanted to play his Game Boy, and I'm like, what on earth is Nintendo doing then, man?
Yeah.
Like, but again, that was like the 90s and Attitude.
The 90s, yeah.
we're gonna do crazy stuff. Like,
everything's gross.
Everything's gross. Everything's neon. Everything's hip. And dude, I'm just like, like, you go back and look at like some of the shit they were doing, and like you'd be like, yo, Nintendo, you guys were wild back in the day. You guys you didn't give a shit. But I mean, again, like now, I wonder if they're like, I wonder at Nintendo headquarters if they have like, you know, a museum, or like not a museum, but like here's our history of the company. You know what I mean? I wonder if they just leave that shit out. Like, might want to take that shit down.
Extend the chloroform bit.
X that fucking VHS where we kidnapped a dude. That would be on Twitter now. That would be a movement. Like, Jesus, dude.
So that game was really cool. I have a quick story about that. Like, the Rumble Pack was really cool, and so I had a friend over one time, and we were playing it, and the Rumble Pack malfunctioned. It just kept rumbling and rumbling and rumbling. I think what happened was the connection got a little bit loose because it actually fell out. It like ejected out of the back of my controller and fell to the ground. Like, what the heck? But yeah, I'll always remember that. That was really funny. And then the quintessential Tony Hawk, I rented that at the game store. Oh my god. Okay, so sorry. Renting games was like a huge thing.
Yes.
You know, Saturday night, you go, you rent a game, you rent a movie. My family did this slumber party thing where they'd take the mattress and put it in the living room. We would watch like Saturday Night Live and stuff. It was just like really cool. And but I would always rent these games. And so like going into a rental shop was like, there was this shop, Family Video, and it was like awesome. And like recently I went up north to where I grew up for a friend's wedding, and they still have a Family Video that's open and in operation.
I am not exaggerating or kidding with you right now. I was just on Facebook, on the Podcast Unlocked Facebook group, and somebody actually put on there, hey, Midwest people, Family Video today, and it's July 15th, today is doing like Gamer Appreciation Day, to where you could go in and rent a game for free for 5 days.
Yeah.
And I just straight went, yeah, those are still a thing in the Midwest. And again, like, it's obviously they're not everywhere, but I mean, the Family Videos still exist because there's still a market for it. But in most major cities, not really. Like, red boxes suffice for most of everything now. But yeah, dude, like, there are still Family Videos, and that I will say, just because me and him are both in the Phoenix area now. I've seen one or two like that still.
Yeah,
like,
and it's
so random.
Great.
Yes,
it was so cool to just walk in there, especially because it's like, this is the place I used to go. You know,
right?
Like, it was being able to, because I would. Going up there, I was like, oh, I want to visit this, I want to experience these old things I remember fondly. And, like, that was one of the things I was not expecting to be able to partake in again. And it was just really, really awesome to be able to do that.
The only thing is like, you go in that place, you're like, man, this place is great, and then you walk out and do nothing.
Yeah, exactly. I didn't rent anything, obviously, but it was just really cool to kind of peruse it, and, you know, but Tony Hawk, I rent Tony Hawk, and oh my god, there's all this music. Yes. It's different, and they aren't playing this on the radio. The only thing that sounds like this is like Blink-182. I'm like, what the heck? But they also have all these like other kind of like more like punk, quote unquote, like less pop punk, more punk, you know, like eventually they had like actually just like the Sex Pistols, just like some straight up like stuff. They had like some of that burgeoning like metal stuff, like Motorhead and stuff like that, and the Ace of Spades, whatever. But like, it was just awesome. And like, up until then, I was listening to very like, hey, whatever's on the radio, and that really got me into like discovering music and stuff like that. And my sister was into kind of like some of that music too. And shortly, this is like around the time where like LimeWire and Kazaa start coming up, and so you're like typing weird stuff, and like MySpace is becoming a thing. And so I'm like adding these people who are all into this like new sad emo music about how much I hate my life, and like I'm like, oh, that band sounds cool, and like you start looking it up, and then fast forward to now, I'm listening to like just like brutal death metal and like goofy stuff like that. And but that was what set a path for just my appreciation and love of music, which is just like two passions, is like video games and music. And like that game was so integral, and I would not be the same person if it weren't for that game. So
I wouldn't be the same person because of that game, because I actually started skating because of the game. Like I've said the story 100 times. I stopped video games because of that game, because I was skateboarding more than I was playing video games. But like you said though, influencing on music, my favorite band is Rise Against, and I found them because of Tony Hawk Underground. And I found out they were like a Chicago band, and they came to the skate park that I used to go to all the time. And I was like, this is my new favorite band. And they still are. They're still awesome. I'm like, and again, it's just such a good way to experience music. And like now in another way, like Rock Band made me find music, a completely different music that I didn't know about again as well. Like I started actually, because again, I used to be that guy where I was just into like newer metal and then like Rise Against and that kind of shit. And then literally I played Rock Band, and I'm like, The Who is so fucking amazing. Why have I not listened to them for a while? Like, what is wrong with me? How have I not heard of these people before? And now I just have a greater appreciation for music in general. But thank you, video games. That shit works. Nothing
exactly. Yeah, so that was really cool. And then so like moving on to the GameCube era, I guess. And like in between, I'm keeping up with like the Game Boys and stuff like that, and like, you know, that's all well and good. A quick story about my first RPG experience. I did not know what an RPG was. It was Super Mario RPG. And I didn't know that you had to talk to people. So, like, at the beginning, you know, like, you actually are playing a game. You're like, okay, I get this. This is a battle system. Like, it's you take turns, and there's timing effects. And this is really, really cool. And then I get to the thing where it's like, you got to talk to Toad. And I'm like, I'm stuck. I don't know where to go. I'm like going back going to check out the Bowser's castle. And then go back to, like, Mario's pad. And I'm like, what the heck?
Well,
and
before, I was when you talked to Toad, you just beat the castle, and at the end, Toad talked to you, so you were
That's so this is the first time you have to initiate that, and so I'm just like, what is this game? And I was like Mom, I'm thinking about like returning this game, or like I don't like this game. And then I'm messing around with it, and I talk to Toad, and then you understand that thing, and then like the rest of the game, I'm just like, becomes one of my favorite games of all time, you know, like. And so that's kind of like a funny thing. It's just like to think that I would have missed out on that. And my favorite game of all time is Earthbound. And I remember Schoolyard, my buddy Mikey. You got to play this game, Earthbound. I keep renting it. It's so funny. There's these ghosts in the tunnel, and it's scary, and it's awesome. And I'm like, okay, you know, whatever, maybe one day. And then eventually, like, I check it out, and I'm like, why did I wait so long? This is the best game in the world, you know, like, oh my God.
I also love those moments in gaming where you're just like, what the fuck have I been doing with my life? Like, why have I not been doing this?
Yeah.
That's always great. And the RPG thing, I will say because it's just a different game style, right? I mean, when you're used to playing a certain, you know, platformers or shooters or action games, you're not used to going up and like exploring and like leveling up was another concept. I just, you know what I mean, back then leveling up just meant you get a bigger gun to shoot somebody. Like, you don't fucking level your character up, you just get a big gun. Like, I need this gun to kill this person. Like, no, like, you have to get good. Like, it sounds dumb, but you gotta get good. Like, you have to kind of do some shit in order to be able to be better.
You have to grind and think and use math and stuff and read these weird words, like, you know, and then you kind of start building a vocabulary. Like, I remember, like, I learned the word altitude from Star Fox. There are certain words that I can trace back. Like, I learned that playing video games.
I want to say, like, my first RPG, like, it sounds dumb, but, like, and this is, like, everybody makes fun of it, but honestly, my first RPG, like, turn-based RPG was Pokemon. Like, oh, yeah. It's like, again, it's like my baby's first RPG, but
it's still good.
It's still good. Like, it's so good.
It's so good. And it was funny because I really kind of had an affinity for RPGs going on then. And then my buddy, or my cousin Chris, again, during the Game Boy Advance, he's like, "Oh, here, try this game. It's Castlevania." I'm like, "Okay." And I'm playing it. I'm like, "Oh, cool. It's a platformer. I like platformers." And I'm killing enemies. I'm like, "Okay." And then all of a sudden it's like, level up. And I'm like, this is an RPG that's also a platformer?
Right.
It was like Circle of the Moon. I was like, oh my god.
You mean when Castlevania games were awesome? Yeah.
Yeah.
By the way, DS ones were amazing too. Like, the DS were fantastic. Like,
I'm playing Order of Ecclesia at work right now. When it's super slow, like I'll just play Order of Ecclesia, and I'm to Dracula. I gotta grind the hell out of it right now. But yeah.
Yeah, but I mean those are types of games that you have that memory that like, or just, trying to new game experiences in general. Like, I remember, I'm trying to think, like, I'm sure I gave up on NES games because at the time I just didn't understand them. I was just like, the fuck is this? And I just got rid of it. I can't think of any off the top of my head, but I'm sure there are, and again, that's why, because they were just so forgettable because I didn't give a shit. Yeah, at the time I played it, and I was probably just like, this is too hard, or fuck this game, or I don't understand it. So I just blanked it out, but I'm sure we've all missed out on games. But that moment when you come and you're like, you find a game that everybody, that's been out forever, that you're now playing. In a way, nowadays, that can be a good thing, though, because there are certain games that when they come out, are just a nightmare. They're a buggy disaster. They're fucking broken. They don't have,
or it's just at the right time.
Right. Or they don't have this like thing figured out. Like, but then the game's like later on, obviously you play the game and you're like, holy shit, this game's awesome. Example for me, which this game has taken over my fucking life and I'm very frustrated by it, is Grand Theft Auto Online. I literally, I got, everybody and their mother got Grand Theft Auto 5 when it came out. I played the story. I beat it. I was like, this is great. When the online came out, it was broke as fuck. There was no hype.
Yeah, I remember at the beginning, I'm like, okay, this is kind of cool, and I dropped off of it.
Yeah, you're just like, this is okay. And then literally, like, I'm not kidding you, 5 years later, all of a sudden, I see my buddies playing it. I'm like, hey, what's up with online? Why is everybody playing it? And they're like, when was the last time you played it? I'm like, fucking 5 years ago. And they're like, no, you should play online. I go online, and there's heists. You could buy businesses. You could buy hangars. You could buy helicopters, jets, motorcycles. There's a fucking DeLorean in the game. And I'm like, this game is insane now. And I'm so happy that I played it. But again, if you played it at the very beginning, which I did, I was just like, this game is okay. But then the game just got way better, and then you play it, and you're like, holy shit. Destiny, you could tell everybody Destiny's that game, because I played Destiny when it first came out, and I fucking hated it. It was grindy, it was boring, the story sucked. I remember at the time when I was first playing Destiny, I described it as the most expensive free-to-play game I've ever played in my life. It was fucking awful.
Yeah.
I just couldn't do it. And then, like, of course, years later, people go, oh, after the Taken King, it got really good. I'm like, well, I'm glad 3 years later it got really good, but, like, I don't give a shit about it anymore. But, like, certain games, like Rocket League, I slept on Rocket League and then just played it one day, and I'm like, I could have been fucking playing this instead of some of the shit I was playing. Like, man, what did I do? Like, why am I making such poor decisions in life? But, no, I mean, like you said, though, you have those games that, and now Earthbound's your favorite game. You know what I mean? Like, I'm very glad you at least were like, fine, I'll rent it. And then after, oh my God.
And then I discover Mother 3. There's a sequel to my favorite game, and people are working on translating it. Oh my gosh. I actually visited Japan. I've been there twice. But awesome. I went there, and I got Mother 1. I got Mother 2. I got Mother 3. I got Mother 1 plus 2. I bought up all of the actual cartridges, so I actually have copies of all the games. So I was like super stoked on that. It's just my favorite like series of all time. It's just so special and like so different. And I could spin a yarn about that for like ever, but I won't chew up time with that, because oddly enough, it falls outside. Like, I first actually played it from start to finish when I was in college, so it's obviously out of that jurisdiction. But yeah.
Yeah, I mean, as far as it goes, like, that's where Nintendo will just fucking tug at your heartstrings until they maybe decide to do it. Like, it's so funny because everybody, I wonder if Reggie just gets tired of hearing that shit.
He probably does.
After every E3, he probably has something in there. Like, if you fucking ask me about Mother 3 one more time, like yeah. Reggie on camera is so nice. I bet you off camera, Reggie would murder you in your right in front of your family if you asked for Mother 3.
He's got nightmares about Mother 3. He's like, ah.
He doesn't give a shit.
When he sees red now, he's like a bull. He just goes into a rage. He doesn't know why. In the back of his mind, it's because Mother 3's red.
Right. I'm thinking of all of these different games that the thing is, at least some people, the thing that sucks is that some people end up making the game, and then of course it pisses off people that waited for it forever. That's the only thing that's frustrating because. There's games out there. Well, again, Metroid Prime 3 is being made, which everybody wouldn't shut the fuck up about. They're finally making it. And now I just pray to God that all these people that were so bonered up for it for all these years don't play it and go, what a bullshit game.
And there's going to be that contingent, but you know what? I'm setting my expectation okay, cool. Hopefully it'll be fun. Right. I've learned that just appreciate games for what they are. Sometimes it's going to be good. Sometimes it's going to be bad. It's still supposed to be a fun hobby.
Correct.
I'm here to have fun and enjoy my time. And if something's a little bit, crummy, hey, there's always been bad games.
Right.
Yeah, you just, you go with it and appreciate it for what it is. And nowadays, getting back to the point where games are so robust, there's writing aspects, there's voice acting, there's this, there's that. So maybe the gameplay is really repetitive, but maybe the voice acting was really good. Maybe the writing and the story is actually a really good deconstruction of the human condition or something like that. So there's different facets that you can appreciate in games other than one thing. So, we're lucky. We're really lucky now. Back in the day, it was it's a Dick Tracy game, and you die all the time, and nobody tells you where to go, and it's really hard, and it's just all around kind of a not very good game.
Right. Well, back then too. Also, as kids, your two things that you judge things on, which is really sad, were graphics and then gameplay. If a game looked amazing, you would sometimes put up with the bullshit of it not being that good of a game. But then there's games where the gameplay was phenomenal, but then some people judged it that doesn't look as good as this game.
Oh my god, do you remember when Wind Waker was coming out?
Uh-huh.
And people were like, I'm gonna boycott it. It looks like a cartoon. This isn't my...
People are uneducated. Fucking stupid.
Yeah. And now you look at it, it's aged so gracefully because it's such a stylized, game.
I will tell everybody till the end of time, my brother-in-law Nick loved Wind Waker. He said this game is going to be amazing, and everyone was like, you're fucking stupid. That game looks dumb. And then what happens? You make an HD remake, and people are like, I've always liked Wind Waker, and my brother-in-law gets so pissed. He's like, fuck all of you, because none of you said that to me. None of you thought that back when that game came out, because everybody, again, thought it looked like a quote-unquote cartoon. But there were games it was just an art style, just like there's movies that have different art styles. It's an art style. What the fuck?
And it was against the grain because everyone was going towards that photorealism. Where we were able to make it realistic, and they saw that, and they're like, hey, we can come up with a wacky style and really kind of make it look really interesting and do different stuff. Yeah, it was just kind of cool. And
well, here's the other thing too. Photorealism. The problem with photorealism games is that they will never hold up because every year they keep getting better. Games that have a cartoon art style or a different art style will be awesome for a long time because they're just different. That's the thing. By the way, Resident Evil 1 was meant to be a photorealistic game. Go fucking look at it now. It's not in any way. But you look back on games like that, or you get back on games like Shadow of the Colossus, or, for example, for me, one game I think that'll hold up for a while just because of the art style is Cuphead. Cuphead is fucking gorgeous, and it's so unique and different that if you play that game 15 years from now, people are still going to go, that's fucking cool.
Absolutely.
Look at this art style. That was
timeless.
Yeah, and I think that's one of those, Wind Waker was one of those first games, and shout out to Nintendo for doing it. They were in that mode where they were like, we don't have to do this photorealistic shit that everybody else is doing. We want to do this. Now, granted, do they have Zelda games that are trying to do that? Sure.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, Twilight Princess.
Even then, like, yeah, the Twilight Princess, but even then, those games, like, you kind of look at it and you're like, no, there is still sort of a distinct sort of style. It's almost like, kind of like an anime-esque sort of thing where it's like, okay, so you can kind of see that. Like, it is kind of realistic, but you can still see a little bit of stylization in those ones too.
Sure. I just think now when it comes to looking back on previous games, like, the thing is like, again, back in the day, graphics used to be the more important thing, right? Like, it was just in your head, that was your number one thing. Obviously, as you mature, you get, and I mean, I'm sure there's kids out there now who just look at the best quote unquote looking game and think that's awesome, right? But as you mature and stuff, your
there's like more power to you if you still are into that.
There's people out there that just want to play games because they look really, really pretty, and good for you, right? But I mean, now I think that, like, again, it's all gameplay that's going to differentiate these games. Like, now if you look back at those games, you can't say graphics are what made this game good because those graphics don't hold up now. Like, so now you go back and look at some games and you're just like, this game actually isn't very good because we thought the best thing about it were the graphics. Now you can't say that because there's graphics that look 10 times better. Yeah. Now it's just, all right, how's the gameplay? Ooh, that gameplay actually wasn't very good. You basically put up with certain games because the graphics look good, but now you can't say that shit. But games like Wind Waker looked awesome. At the time, people were pissed, but now you look back at that game compared to everything else, and it's like a breath of fresh air. It's like, this is different. This is something not the norm. Like, not everything has to have 4K and all that shit. This just looks great. And yeah, when they did the HD remaster of that game was fucking pretty. Like, that game was really good. So yeah, I mean, again, some people, I just think now as a genre or a medium, it's just more matured now. Like, overall in general, like gaming now, adults especially who play games, they don't just look at the graphics and go, that game's awesome. Like, we've gotten to the point where we're like, well, how's the gameplay? How's the story? How are the characters?
Yeah. There is a definite spike in interest in that kind of thing. I do remember back when I was little, one of my biggest sticking points was like replayability. Like, I would always say replay value. Like, can you play it more than once and have fun with it? And like, oh my god, cheats were awesome for that.
Right.
Because you could go and be like, all right, so I beat it. Now, what if my character had a giant head and he was doing it, and that it was a stupid little switch, but it was enough to be like, hey, all right. Or like, okay, so like I'm playing like a game, I can't think of a specific one, but where like either character model and you can play as like Tails or something like that. But like Tails is also there, or something like that, and you're like, haha, that's funny. Like, just for the stupid novelty of it, and be like, he's talking to himself, and he's just, it's great.
Well, I think like certain games, like they had cheats, which cheats were fun, but then there was like, if you beat the game, X, Y, or Z happened, and I mean, again, sounds dumb, but I go back to Resident Evil 2, where like, if you beat the game, you get the rocket launcher, and then you can go back and play it with the rocket launcher. Or you unlock this character skin where you can play as a piece of tofu as you fucking run around. Like,
yes, I remember the tofu. Yes. I never played that game, but I always remember Nintendo Power. The tofu, unlock the tofu.
Yeah, exactly. You're like, what the fuck? Who's on tofu? Now, I mean, it's funny is now, I don't think cheat codes really exist much. Like, there's no real cheat codes anymore.
Yeah, they don't.
Some of the things now are like, hey, you just want to buy this? Which, again, good for you guys. You got to make money somehow. I'm not shitting on microtransactions. But
you kind of, it's interesting with the, like, when trying to deconstruct why cheat codes aren't around as much anymore. And, like, it basically comes down to, like, so much games, basically, now, they rely on, like, online connectivity. So it's like, well, you can't unlock all the guns because we have a progression system for that, and like it would be busted. Or a lot of times it was like a bunch of lives, like you would just get infinite lives.
Sure.
And you look at a lot of modern like platformers and stuff, like that's just implied. It's
like there's no game over.
There's no game over. You ran out of lives. So
I do like how some games, though, that is a mode where it's like, hey, you fucking die, you will go back, and you will redo this whole game, which, some of those, there's an achievement for, I think, Wolfenstein 2. It's like, beat it on the hardest difficulty, and if you die, you go back to the beginning. I was like, fuck that. No, thank you. like, we had to deal with that back in the day. I'm not trying to do that shit now. I got a job and shit. I got time for this. Like, this is crazy.
Exactly. Oh my god. Did you play that Circle of the Moon game at all?
Yes.
Yeah, that's a perfect example of one with the mode. It's like, hey, here's the classic mode where you can have lives and stuff like that, and here's the modern mode where it's just like, just play the game.
Yeah, exactly. Which, I mean, again, I think now, like I said, cheat codes, I don't want to say cheat codes I mean, like you said, though, cheat codes as far as a game where there's an online component, you can't have cheat codes because that's fucking cheating. Like, that's just cheating.
Yeah, exactly.
But, I mean, I think I want to say Grand Theft Auto 5, I think, still had cheat codes for the single player, which, again, like, cheat codes are just fuck around stuff. Like, that's all it should be. Cheat codes
were baked into the DNA of, like, the Grand Theft Auto series. Like, it would be so hard to actually take that out,
Right. I think now, like, that was one of the big games that cheat codes. But I think, like, certain games now, instead of cheat codes, they just want you to play the game to progress to the point. Which, I mean, to be honest, it sounds bad, but all things now are all just people wanting you to play their game and no one else's. Like, hey, we just want you to take time up on our game, which leads you to not buying other games and spending more money and time in our game. So, again, though, I think, like, Grand Theft, I guarantee you, though, I bet you Red Dead, hopefully we'll still have cheat codes in the single player, because I think Rockstar is, again, is that type of game where Rockstar is just, dude, Rockstar can do what the fuck they want. I love it. They literally just go, we're going to change our Twitter symbol to a red R and have the internet
everybody
lose
knows.
its fucking mind. Just, oh my God, it's Red Dead Redemption. Blah, 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 like, just lose their shit. And I'm like, I think we're literally, like, Rockstar is really one of the only companies out there that can get away with that shit. And they can also get away with telling you, fuck off, we're not going to E3. Like, we'll show you a trailer when we feel like it, and you'll like it, and you'll buy it. And again, dude, here's how crazy it is. A game that's 5 years old, Grand Theft Auto 5, was still the number one game sold on PlayStation last month digitally.
Yeah. So
it's become that as awful of a game as far as, like, kids shouldn't be playing this game and shit. It's that game that's literally become a staple. It's like, oh, you bought an Xbox?
Oh, it's a rite of passage.
Yeah, it's like, you go buy Grand Theft Auto 5 now, and you don't fucking talk to me until you go buy Grand Theft Auto. Like, it's just, that's the game that everybody has to get. So.
Oh yeah, like being like a very teenager, like 12 or whatever, that you go to your friend's house. Like, I played it at my friend Paul's house, and he had a PlayStation 2. That was like the first PC game that I bought, because I was like, I'm not buying a PlayStation 2. I just want to buy that. And I put it on my dad's computer, and I would play it on the computer. That and, like, Vice City. And so, like, but it was like a rite of passage. Oh, and it was great because, like I was mentioning, that was around the time when I was discovering my own music, and you could put your own music in the MP3 folder and listen to it. It was, like, so cool.
It's so cool. So as far as it goes, obviously you're big in the games now to where you're actually, like, I don't know, making your own games. What are your gaming habits like today? Are you still as interested as you were then? Do you have, like, what are your habits like now?
So, like, obviously, don't have as much time as I used to. I think that's just part of growing up.
I was going to say, welcome to adulthood. You have a job and
exactly.
shit and bills and shit. Yeah.
So I'm kind of, like, into the genres I'm into, and, like, I'll buy RPGs, but I'm like I got a bunch of Final Fantasy games that I bought. Like, I bought, like, I don't know, like 10 and 10-2 for PlayStation 2, and I'm like, I've barely touched them, but I'm just like, oh, maybe one day. But the thing of it is like, I have, like, a 6-year-old niece, and so she comes over, she plays these games and whatever. But, like, I'm lucky with my job. It's like, when we have downtime in my job, it's downtime, and when it's dead, it's dead. So you usually get about, like, 2 hours of downtime where I could play a game, or me and my friends actually started playing, like, Dungeons and Dragons at work.
Nice. So
it's just a ton of free time there, so I'm kind of lucky to have that. So I'll sneak it in whenever I can, but I think right now the reason that I'm trying to recollect all the old things that I used to own is because, like, getting to that age, like, I got a nephew who's almost the get together that I was at yesterday was for like a diaper party for my nephew who's gonna be coming into the world soon, and I think that it's just like a lot right now. I'm preparing for like legacy stuff. I just want to be able to share these experiences that meant so much to me growing up with my family and then eventually my own kids. And I think that that's like the big reason why I'm still really passionate about like the older stuff.
Nothing wrong with that. I mean, like that's how I thought. Like when I've gotten to a point now where I personally don't hang on to any games or anything. Like just I don't want to say I don't collect things because I mean there are certain franchises that I love that I like will collect. Gears, Halo, Kingdom Hearts. Which, by the way, what a weird fucking left turn, right? It's like I love Halo, I love Gears. Oh, by the way, I love Kingdom Hearts. Like what the?
Oh, fuck?
Yeah. But as far as it goes, like there are just games that you want to share with people, and that's the one thing I was like, you get those people out there who are like, I want my kids to start playing Mario 1. And I'm like, you can't fucking do that. Like, your kid's going to be the fucking weird kid who doesn't know what Minecraft or Fortnite are. And like,
right, yeah.
You can't have that fucking kid at school.
Exactly.
Like, you can't be that kid. So, yeah, I mean, it's funny because I introduced my kids to, my kids found their own games, however they found them out, friends and shit. But then, I'm glad that I've let my son, like, the Wii U was a good console. Let me rephrase that. I shouldn't say that. The Wii U was a good console for virtual console, at least, because I was able to tell my kids, like, here's Mario 1. Play this shit and tell me what you think. And they'd play it and they go, that was fun. And I'm like, thank God at least that I have kids who aren't just snobs of like, it doesn't look like this. Like, you know what I mean? You're just gotta get your, show people what's out there. And again, some of those games hold up, but some don't. Don't fucking make your kid play Friday the 13th on NES because that game. Don't.
Oh
do
my
that.
God,
your kid
dude,
will fucking hate you. Your kid will think
that
it's punishment.
game is so funny. I used to play that game. That was another one of my very early memories. So like I picked that game up and like that is such a nothing game. Yeah, like it's like you just kind of run around like, hey, there's Jason, and he kills you because he's like way too strong. I'm like, well, that was fun. I'm gonna do something else.
Yeah, but I mean, what the fuck are all these other things? Like, what is that monster? That wasn't in Friday the 13th,
right?
Like, yeah. But I mean, like certain games. I mean, again, like my kids at least now they have a broad, but also too, there's such a variety of games you can do now. Like not just console. Like my son is all over his Xbox, but of course I'm happy too because there's games my son started playing. Like he started playing Monster Hunter, and he's just like, this game's amazing, Dad. And I'm like, well, I'm glad you don't just like Minecraft. Like, that's good. You enjoy other games. So, get your kids, eventually you'll have kids. But yeah, have kids when you're later. Fucking enjoy your life. Go do shit. Like, go have fun. Go to Japan a couple more times because that shit's awesome. If people wanted to check you out and find you on the internet, where would they go?
I do have a Twitter. It's WTF. It's Ed. So basically, what the fuck, it's Ed. That's got a link to my Discord that you can come and chit chat with me. I'm really not too much on social media that much right now. But I think the best thing that people can check out is if you go to YouTube, type in Rad's Game, RADS game. Check out some of the music for my game and hopefully maybe get hyped. And if you want to pop into the Discord and ask me questions about it, I'm down to chit chat about that and just talk about games, music. It's really kind of a chill place. So,
and I'll have links in the show notes for all of the above. So if you want to check them out there, feel free to. So, dude, thank you so much for being on the show. Thank you for telling me all of your awesome stories, and I really appreciate it.
Yeah, anytime.
All right, and thank you, Ed, for being on the show. If you guys want to check him out on Twitter, go ahead and follow him at WTFITSED. So WTF, it's Ed. Go ahead and follow him there. You can check out his Discord link. It's one of his pinned tweets, as well as any future endeavors he has with his games. So feel free to check him out there. If you guys want to be on the show just like he was, go ahead and send me a tweet at MitchPower1116 on Twitter, or at the podcast Twitter page, which is at GUG Podcast on Twitter. Of course, we also have our Facebook group, which is just search up Growing Up Gaming on Facebook. You'll find us there, as well as the YouTube channel. You can go ahead and check it out. Just search GUG Podcast on YouTube. and you'll find that there. I also have a website, gugpodcast.com, which I do not update often enough, so maybe I should do that once in a while, so that would be helpful. Again, thank you guys so much for your support. Hopefully you've hit subscribe on iTunes or Google Play. Leave me a good review on YouTube or iTunes. I know that helps algorithms. I don't know. That's just something that people say. Maybe it doesn't. Maybe it's all bullshit. I don't know. But again, thank you guys so much for returning each and every week. I will catch you guys next week with another new guest. See ya.